Welcome to Stoic Vivu, where we make ancient wisdom work for your modern life. We're here to help you discover how timeless Stoic philosophy can transform your daily chaos into unshakable strength, purpose, and inner peace. Here's what most people get wrong about building a strong life. They think it requires perfection, endless motivation, or some special talent they don't have. The truth is far simpler and more powerful. Over 2,000 years ago, ancient philosophers faced the same struggles you do today. Overwhelming schedules, difficult people, uncertainty about the future, and the constant pressure to do more while feeling like they're falling behind. The difference? These Stoic masters discovered something remarkable. They learned that true strength doesn't come from controlling everything around you. It comes from mastering what's actually within your control. They built lives so solid, so grounded in practical wisdom, that external chaos couldn't shake them. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire in history while dealing with plagues, wars, and betrayals. Seneca navigated the dangerous politics of Rome while building wealth and writing timeless philosophy. Epictetus went from slavery to becoming one of history's most respected teachers. These weren't privileged people living in ivory towers. They were dealing with real problems and finding real solutions. Today, you're going to discover their blueprint. Not abstract theories, but 9 specific building blocks that create an unshakable life. Each one addresses a fundamental challenge you face every single day. We'll start with how to build unshakable mornings that give you control over your entire day, instead of letting your day control you. You'll learn the 10-minute daily practice that creates a mental fortress, protecting your peace of mind from external chaos. We'll explore how 20 minutes of strategic reading can build unstoppable wisdom, and why ancient philosophers were actually athletes who understood that physical strength creates mental unshakeability. You'll discover how to build massive success by eliminating one destructive word from your vocabulary and the Stoic paradox of achieving more by strategically doing less. We'll cover how to build inner peace through outer organization, create unbreakable boundaries that protect your energy, and develop flexible strength that adapts without breaking. Each building block comes with real stories from modern Americans in cities like Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles who transformed their lives using these exact principles. These aren't complicated philosophies requiring years of study. They're practical tools you can start using today. By the end of this journey, you'll have a complete blueprint for building the kind of life that stays strong no matter what storms come your way. You'll understand why there's nothing less stoic than disorganization and chaos, and how structure actually creates the freedom you're seeking. The ancient Stoics knew something we've forgotten. Life without design is erratic. But with the right foundation, you become unshakable. Let's build that foundation together, starting right now. 1. How to build unshakable mornings that control your entire day. Consider this. David Chun, a tech executive in Chicago, used to hit the snooze button 5 times every morning. By the time he stumbled out of bed at 7:30, he was already behind schedule, grabbing coffee and checking emails while rushing to catch the train. His days felt reactive, chaotic, like he was constantly playing catch-up with his own life. Sound familiar? Most people lose their day before it even begins. They wake up in survival mode, letting urgency drive their decisions instead of importance. But David discovered something that changed everything. The same morning principle that guided the most powerful man in ancient Rome. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of the vast Roman Empire, didn't have to wake up early. He could have stayed in bed all day if he wanted. Yet every morning he faced the same struggle you do. In his personal journal, he writes about having an argument with himself at dawn. When you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain about if I'm going to do what I was born for? The things I was brought into the world to do. Marcus understood that winning the morning means winning the day, and winning days builds an unshakable life. This wasn't about productivity hacks or time management tricks. It was about something deeper, taking ownership of your existence from the moment consciousness returns. Here's what the Stoics knew that modern people have forgotten. Your morning routine is your daily declaration of who you are and what you value. Every time you hit snooze, you're voting for the person who chooses comfort over growth. Every time you reach for your phone before your feet hit the floor, you're handing control of your mind to external forces. David learned this the hard way. His scattered mornings were creating scattered days, scattered weeks, and ultimately a scattered life. He felt like he was living in constant reaction mode, always putting out fires instead of building something meaningful. The transformation began when David implemented what Marcus Aurelius practiced 2,000 years ago, early rising with immediate purposeful action. Not because it's some magical time of day, but because it's when your willpower is strongest, your mind is clearest, and the world hasn't yet demanded your attention. David started waking up at 5:30 a.m., not to squeeze more productivity into his day, but to reclaim sovereignty over his life. Those first quiet hours became his foundation time for reflection, planning, and mental preparation before the chaos began. The Roman emperor faced plagues, wars, and political betrayals, yet he maintained this practice because he understood a fundamental truth. External circumstances are unpredictable, but your response to them can be consistent. When you start your day with intention instead of reaction, you build the mental strength to handle whatever comes next. Marcus writes in his journal, at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. Or is this what you were created for? To huddle under the blankets and stay warm? He's not being harsh. He's reminding himself that comfort is the enemy of growth. For David, this meant creating what he calls his morning fortress, 30 minutes of uninterrupted time before anyone else in his household woke up. No phone, no emails, no external demands. Just silence, reflection, and intentional preparation for the day ahead. The Stoics taught that discipline is freedom. When you discipline yourself to wake up early and start with purpose, you free yourself from the tyranny of urgency. Instead of your day controlling you, you control your day. But here's the crucial part that most people miss. This isn't about becoming a morning person if you're naturally a night owl. It's about understanding that whenever you choose to begin your day, that beginning should be intentional, not accidental. David discovered that his early morning practice created what psychologists call decision momentum. By making one difficult choice successfully, getting up early, he was more likely to make good choices throughout the day. The discipline compound effect had begun. The Emperor Marcus faced the same internal resistance you face every morning. The difference was his understanding that this daily battle between comfort and growth, between reactive living and intentional living, wasn't just about one morning. It was about the kind of person he was building himself to become. 6 months after implementing his morning fortress, David's entire life had shifted. He was calmer under pressure, more focused during meetings, and felt like he was finally building something meaningful instead of just surviving each day. His colleagues noticed the change, his family noticed the change, and most importantly, David felt like himself again. The ancient Stoics knew that an unshakable life isn't built in moments of crisis. It's built in moments of choice. Every morning, you choose who you're going to be that day. You choose whether you'll be reactive or responsive, scattered or focused, at the mercy of circumstances or grounded in purpose. Ultimately, building unshakable mornings isn't about perfection or extreme discipline. It's about consistency in small, meaningful actions that compound over time. When you win the morning battle against comfort and reactivity, you build the strength to win bigger battles later. With this foundation of morning mastery established, we can now turn to the practice that transforms those early moments of clarity into lasting inner strength throughout your entire day. 2. The 10-minute daily practice that builds mental fortress. Imagine Sarah Rodriguez, a marketing manager in Manhattan, sits in her cramped studio apartment at 11 p.m., her mind racing with tomorrow's presentation, her boss's criticism from earlier, and the endless stream of decisions she needs to make. Her thoughts bounce from anxiety about her performance review to frustration with her coworker to worry about her mother's health. Sleep feels impossible when her brain won't stop spinning. This mental chaos isn't unique to Sarah or to our modern world. 2,000 years ago, Seneca faced the same swirling thoughts in ancient Rome. But he discovered something powerful, a simple practice that transformed mental turbulence into inner peace, confusion into clarity, and overwhelm into focused strength. Every evening, when darkness had fallen and his wife had gone to sleep, Seneca would examine his entire day. He wrote, "I go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself and passing nothing by." This wasn't casual reflection, it was deliberate mental construction, building what would become an unshakable fortress of the mind. The practice Sarah discovered, and that you can implement starting tonight, takes just 10 minutes but creates a foundation stronger than any external circumstance can shake. It's called deliberate reflection, and it's the secret weapon that history's strongest minds use to build unbreakable mental resilience. Here's what most people get wrong about dealing with mental chaos. They try to suppress it, ignore it, or distract themselves from it. The Stoics understood that you can't build strength by avoiding difficulty. You build strength by processing it systematically. Sarah learned this during a particularly brutal week when 3 major campaigns fell apart simultaneously. Instead of letting her thoughts spiral into endless worry loops, she began implementing Seneca's evening practice. Those 10 minutes became her daily mental fortress construction time. The process is deceptively simple but profoundly powerful. Seneca would ask himself specific questions. What did I learn today? Where did I act according to my values, and where did I fall short? What challenged me and how did I respond? What am I grateful for? What can I do better tomorrow? But here's the crucial insight that transforms this from simple reflection into fortress building. Seneca wasn't just reviewing his day, he was training his mind to find wisdom in every experience, strength in every challenge, and growth in every failure. For Sarah, this meant taking her chaotic Tuesday, when the client rejected her proposal, her computer crashed, and she spilled coffee on her presentation notes, and mining it for mental gold. Instead of just feeling frustrated, she asked, what did this teach me about preparation? How did I handle pressure? What would I do differently? The ancient Stoics understood something modern neuroscience now confirms. Our brains are constantly being rewired by our thoughts and attention. When you deliberately reflect on your experiences with intentionality and wisdom, you're literally building new neural pathways that create greater resilience, clarity, and emotional stability. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, kept what we now call his personal journal, not for publication, but for this exact practice. His famous work wasn't meant to be read by others. It was his 10-minute daily practice of building mental strength through intentional reflection. The emperor would write thoughts like, "What brings no benefit to the hive can bring none to the bee," working through his challenges and finding philosophical frameworks that would guide his future decisions. He was building his mental fortress one reflection at a time. Sarah discovered that her 10-minute practice created what she calls mental space, room between stimulus and response where she could choose her reactions instead of being controlled by them. When her boss criticized her work, instead of immediately spiraling into self-doubt, she had built the mental strength to ask, "Is this feedback useful? How can I grow from this? What would a strong person do here?" The beauty of this practice lies in its simplicity and cumulative power. And Frank, writing in her diary during history's darkest period, understood that paper is more patient than people. Your journal becomes a safe space where you can be completely honest, work through difficult emotions, and build wisdom from every experience. Here's how to implement Seneca's fortress-building practice. Set aside 10 minutes each evening, preferably before bed. Write about your day, but don't just recount events. Examine them. Ask yourself, what challenged me today, and how did I respond? What am I learning about myself? Where did I act with wisdom, and where can I improve? What am I grateful for? The key is consistency, not perfection. Seneca noted that the sleep which follows self-examination was particularly sweet. When you process your day intentionally, your mind releases the need to keep spinning through problems while you're trying to rest. Sarah's transformation didn't happen overnight, but within weeks, she noticed profound changes. Difficult situations that once sent her into mental chaos became opportunities for growth. Criticism that once devastated her became useful feedback. Setbacks that once felt overwhelming became temporary challenges she could navigate with clarity. The Stoics called this practice a kind of spiritual windshield wipers, clearing away the mental debris that accumulates throughout the day so you can see clearly again. It's a daily reset that prevents small frustrations from becoming overwhelming burdens and minor setbacks from becoming major emotional crises. Modern research confirms what the Stoics knew intuitively. People who engage in deliberate reflection show increased emotional regulation, better decision-making, and greater life satisfaction. You're not just processing your day, you're building the mental architecture for a stronger, more resilient life. In essence, these 10 minutes of evening reflection become your daily investment in unshakable mental strength. You're not just reviewing what happened, you're extracting wisdom, building resilience, and preparing your mind to handle whatever tomorrow brings with greater clarity and purpose. Building on this point, the next pillar requires feeding your mind with the wisdom of those who've faced similar challenges and emerged stronger. A practice that turns 20 minutes of daily reading into unstoppable personal growth. 3. How to build unstoppable wisdom in just 20 minutes daily. Set the scene. Marcus Thompson, a freelance graphic designer in Los Angeles, feels stuck. He's talented, hardworking, and ambitious, but every challenge feels like he's reinventing the wheel. When clients make unreasonable demands, he doesn't know how to respond. When projects fail, he takes it personally. When business gets slow, he panics. He feels like he's making the same mistakes over and over, learning everything the hard way through painful trial and error. Marcus's breakthrough came when he discovered what a young man named Zeno learned 2,300 years ago in Athens. Zeno had lost everything in a shipwreck and found himself broke and desperate in a foreign city. Seeking guidance, he visited the Oracle of Delphi, who gave him cryptic advice. You will become wise when you begin to have conversations with the dead. For years, Zeno couldn't understand what this meant. Then one day, wandering through the marketplace, he heard a bookseller reading aloud from the dialogues of Socrates, a man who had died decades earlier. In that moment, everything clicked. Books weren't just collections of words. They were conversations with the greatest minds who had ever lived. This revelation founded Stoic philosophy and changed the course of human wisdom. More importantly for you, it reveals the secret to building unstoppable wisdom in just 20 minutes a day. Here's what most people get wrong about learning. They think wisdom comes from experience alone, or from formal education, or from listening to current experts. The Stoics understood something far more powerful. The greatest teachers aren't necessarily alive today. The smartest person who ever faced your exact problem might have lived centuries ago and left you a detailed guide on how to handle it. Marcus Thompson's transformation began when he stopped trying to figure everything out alone and started having conversations with the dead. 20 minutes each morning, he would read from Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, not as ancient history, but as mentorship from people who had faced overwhelming challenges and found practical solutions. When a client demanded unreasonable revisions for the third time, instead of getting frustrated, Marcus remembered Epictetus' teaching about what we can and cannot control. When a major project fell through, instead of spiraling into self-doubt, he recalled Seneca's writings about setbacks being opportunities for growth. When business slowed down, instead of panicking, he applied Marcus Aurelius's principles about focusing on effort rather than outcomes. The ancient Stoics were serious about reading, not casual browsing, but deep, intentional study. Seneca wrote about the importance of lingering on the works of master thinkers, reading and rereading until their wisdom becomes part of your thinking. This wasn't about collecting information. It was about absorbing wisdom that could guide real decisions. Think about it this way. Every problem you face, someone has faced before. Every challenge that feels overwhelming to you, someone has navigated successfully. Every mistake you're tempted to make, someone has already made and learned from. The question isn't whether the wisdom exists, it's whether you're accessing it. Modern military leader James Mattis understood this principle perfectly. He said that if you haven't read hundreds of books, particularly about your field, you are functionally illiterate. His point wasn't about showing off intellectual credentials. It was about practical preparation. Why learn everything through painful trial and error when you can learn from the trials and errors of others? Marcus Thompson discovered that 20 minutes of strategic reading was more valuable than hours of random internet browsing. Instead of getting his advice from social media posts and random articles, he was learning from people who had built empires, survived wars, and navigated the most challenging circumstances imaginable. But here's the crucial insight that transforms casual reading into wisdom building. The Stoics didn't just read for information. They read for transformation. They approached books as conversations, not consumption. They asked questions. How does this apply to my current situation? What would this author do in my position? How can I implement this wisdom today? For Marcus, this meant keeping a reading journal where he wrote down insights and specific applications. When Seneca wrote about the importance of focus, Marcus noted 3 ways to apply this to his client meetings. When Epictetus discussed emotional resilience, Marcus identified specific triggers he could practice responding to differently. The 20-minute practice isn't about speed reading or getting through as many books as possible. It's about deep engagement with timeless wisdom. Marcus would often spend a week on a single page of Marcus Aurelius, extracting every insight and testing each principle in his daily life. This approach solved Marcus's feeling of constantly reinventing the wheel. Instead of facing each challenge as if no one had ever encountered it before, he had access to 23 centuries of tested solutions. Instead of learning everything through personal failure, he could learn from the successes and mistakes of history's wisest people. The results were remarkable. Within 6 months, Marcus was handling difficult clients with confidence, navigating business challenges with calm strategic thinking, and making decisions from a place of wisdom rather than fear. His friends and colleagues noticed the change. He seemed more grounded, more thoughtful, and somehow older in the best possible way. Here's how to implement this conversation with the dead practice. Choose one substantial book by a master thinker. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, or Epictetus are excellent starting points. Read for 20 minutes each morning, but read actively. Ask yourself how each insight applies to your current challenges. Take notes on specific applications. Reread important passages until they become part of your thinking. The key is consistency and depth over speed and breadth. You're not trying to impress anyone with how many books you've read. You're building a library of wisdom in your mind that you can access whenever life presents challenges. Remember Epictetus's insight when a student was bragging about reading obscure, difficult texts. If they had been better writers, you'd have less to brag about. The goal isn't to tackle the most challenging books. It's to find the clearest wisdom that you can actually use in your life. Therefore, it's clear that these 20 minutes of daily conversation with history's wisest minds become your shortcut to wisdom that might otherwise take decades to acquire through experience alone. You're not just reading, you're apprenticing yourself to master teachers who have already solved the problems you're facing. Now that we have established how to build intellectual strength through strategic reading, we can consider how the ancient philosophers understood that true wisdom requires more than just mental development. It demands building the physical foundation that supports unshakable mental strength. 4. Why building physical strength creates mental unshakeability. Let's say Jake Martinez, a software developer in Austin, spends 12 hours a day hunched over his computer. He's brilliant at coding, solves complex problems with ease, and earns excellent money. But by 3 p.m., his back aches, his energy crashes, and his mental focus disappears. Small setbacks feel overwhelming. A single critical comment from his manager ruins his entire day. He feels mentally fragile, like he's running on empty even when he's not technically tired. Jake's assumption was common among knowledge workers, that physical fitness is separate from mental performance. He thought his brain was what mattered for his career, and his body was just the vehicle that carried it around. This disconnect would have shocked the ancient Stoics, who understood something modern people have forgotten. Mental strength and physical strength aren't separate. They're the same strength expressed differently. When most people think of ancient philosophers, they picture old men in togas sitting around discussing abstract ideas. The reality was completely different. Socrates wasn't just intellectually tough. He was known for wearing thin clothing in winter, while his friends bundled up in heavy coats. He was a soldier who showed remarkable endurance in battle. He deliberately hardened himself against physical discomfort because he understood that physical toughness builds mental resilience. Marcus Aurelius, despite being emperor with unlimited comfort available, chose to hunt and wrestle regularly. Seneca took cold plunges every day and could survive on foraged food when necessary. These weren't coincidental habits. They were deliberate practices based on a fundamental insight. You cannot separate the mind from the body that houses it. The Romans had a phrase for this principle: strong mind in a strong body. They understood that physical weakness creates mental vulnerability, while physical strength builds mental unshakeability. This isn't just ancient wisdom. Modern neuroscience confirms that physical exercise literally rewires your brain for greater resilience, focus, and emotional stability. Jake's transformation began when he discovered the story of Theodore Roosevelt, a sickly, nearsighted boy who spent most of his time indoors reading. Roosevelt's father sat him down one day and said, "Theodore, you have the mind, but you don't have the body. You must make your body." Young Theodore looked at his father and declared, "I will make my body." This decision created the active, adventurous Roosevelt who embraced what he called the strenuous life. After serving as president, he explored an uncharted river in the Amazon. What did he bring with him on this dangerous expedition? Copies of Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, proof that physical adventure and philosophical wisdom went hand in hand. For Jake, Roosevelt's example was revelatory. He realized he had been trying to build mental strength while neglecting the physical foundation that supports it. His afternoon energy crashes weren't just about needing caffeine. They were symptoms of a body that couldn't sustain the demands he was placing on his mind. Musonius Rufus, Epictetus's teacher, was explicit about this connection. He taught that the philosopher's body should be well prepared for physical activity because the virtues often require physical capability as a necessary instrument for life's challenges. He advocated training yourself to handle cold, heat, thirst, hunger, hard beds, and physical discomfort because this strengthens the body and makes it ready for any task. This wasn't about becoming a bodybuilder or extreme athlete. It was about building what the Stoics called useful strength, physical capability that supports mental performance and emotional resilience. When your body is strong and resilient, your mind operates from a position of strength rather than weakness. Jake started with 30 minutes of daily exercise. Nothing extreme, just consistent movement that challenged his body. Within weeks, he noticed changes that went far beyond physical fitness. His afternoon energy crashes disappeared. Stressful situations that used to overwhelm him became manageable challenges. Critical feedback that once devastated him became useful information he could process calmly. The connection became clear. When Jake's body felt strong and capable, his mind felt strong and capable. When he pushed through physical resistance during workouts, he built the same resilience that helped him push through mental challenges at work. The discipline required to maintain physical fitness is transferred directly to the discipline needed for focused thinking and emotional stability. Here's what Jake discovered that most people miss. Physical training isn't just about building muscles. It's about building your relationship with discomfort. Every time you choose to continue exercising when your body wants to quit, you're training the same mental strength that helps you persist through intellectual challenges, emotional difficulties, and professional setbacks. The Stoics understood that comfort is the enemy of growth. Seneca wrote about treating the body rigorously so that it wouldn't be disobedient to the mind. This means deliberately seeking appropriate physical challenges that build your capacity to handle whatever life presents. For Jake, this meant cold showers that trained his mind to handle discomfort, hiking that built endurance for long work sessions, and strength training that created the physical foundation for sustained mental performance. He wasn't trying to become an athlete. He was building the physical strength that supports unshakable mental strength. The results extended beyond his personal life into his professional performance. Projects that previously exhausted him became manageable. Long coding sessions didn't drain his mental energy because his body could sustain the physical demands. Workplace stress that used to overwhelm him became just another challenge he could handle with calm focus. Modern research confirms what the Stoics taught. Regular physical exercise increases neuroplasticity, improves cognitive function, reduces anxiety and depression, and builds genuine confidence that comes from knowing your body can handle whatever you ask of it. This isn't about perfection or extreme fitness regimens. It's about understanding that your mind and body are one integrated system. When you strengthen one, you strengthen the other. When you neglect one, you weaken both. Ultimately, building physical strength creates mental unshakeability because it proves to yourself that you can handle discomfort, persist through challenges, and become stronger than you were yesterday. This confidence transfers to every area of your life, creating the foundation for genuine resilience. This, in turn, leads to understanding how physical and mental strength work together to eliminate the single word that destroys more goals than any external obstacle ever could. 5. How to build success by destroying this one word. Visualize this. Elena Vasquez, an entrepreneur in Miami, has a brilliant business idea. She's researched the market, identified the opportunity, and knows exactly what she needs to do. But 6 months later, she's still getting ready to launch. She tells herself she needs 1 more week to perfect the website, 1 more month to save additional funding, and 1 more quarter to study the competition. Meanwhile, 3 competitors have launched similar products and captured the market she identified. Elena's destroyer wasn't lack of talent, resources, or opportunity. It was a single word that kills more dreams than any external obstacle. Tomorrow. The most successful people in history understood that tomorrow is the biggest lie we tell ourselves. Seneca, who built vast wealth while serving as advisor to emperors, wrote that all fools have one thing in common. They're always getting ready to live. They say they need to wait for conditions to improve, for the right moment, for better preparation. But that moment never comes because tomorrow never arrives. Marcus Aurelius captured this truth perfectly in his personal writings. You could be good today, but instead you choose tomorrow. He understood that procrastination isn't just poor time management. It's a fundamental betrayal of your potential. A daily choice to remain less than you could be. Elena's breakthrough came when she realized that tomorrow had become her default response to everything important. Starting her business tomorrow, making that difficult phone call tomorrow, having that crucial conversation tomorrow. The word had become a prison, keeping her trapped in preparation mode while opportunities passed by. Here's what the Stoics understood about procrastination that modern psychology is just beginning to confirm. Delay isn't really about time management or laziness. It's about fear disguised as perfectionism. When you say, "I'll do it tomorrow," you're really saying, "I'm afraid to find out if I'm good enough today." Seneca wrote that putting things off is the biggest waste of life because it snatches away each day as it comes and denies us the present by promising us the future. But here's the insight that changes everything. The future is completely uncertain. The only time you can actually act is right now. Elena learned this lesson dramatically when a competitor launched the exact product she had been perfecting for months. While she was waiting for the right moment, someone else took imperfect action and captured the market. That painful experience taught her something invaluable. Imperfect action beats perfect inaction every single time. The Stoics practiced what they called present moment urgency. Not frantic rushing, but the recognition that now is the only time anything can actually happen. Marcus Aurelius, despite having unlimited power and resources, understood that even emperors are subject to time's limitations. Every day spent in preparation is a day not spent in action. This doesn't mean the Stoics were reckless or unprepared. Marcus spent years studying philosophy and administration before becoming emperor. Seneca carefully built his wealth through strategic investments. But they understood the difference between necessary preparation and procrastination disguised as preparation. Elena discovered that most of her tomorrow habits were fear-based. She wasn't really waiting for better conditions. She was avoiding the risk of failure, criticism, or discovering her limitations. Tomorrow felt safer because it preserved the illusion that she might be perfect if she just waited long enough. The Stoics had a radical solution: embrace imperfection as the price of action. Epictetus taught that you don't need to be perfect to begin, you become better by beginning. Every master was once a beginner who started before they felt ready. For Elena, this meant launching her business with a good enough website instead of a perfect one, making phone calls with imperfect scripts instead of perfect presentations, having difficult conversations with honest uncertainty instead of rehearsed perfection. The results were transformative. Here's what Elena learned that changed everything. Tomorrow assumes you'll have more discipline, more time, and better circumstances in the future. But the Stoics understood that discipline in the future is built by taking action today. You don't develop the ability to do hard things by waiting, you develop it by doing hard things right now. Seneca's insight was profound. He realized that when you consistently choose tomorrow over today, you're programming yourself to always choose delay over action. You're building a habit of avoidance that becomes stronger every time you reinforce it. The antidote is what the Stoics called immediate action on what matters. This doesn't mean doing everything right now. It means identifying what's truly important and refusing to postpone it. When something aligns with your values and goals, the time to begin is now, even if you're not perfectly prepared. Elena implemented what she calls the destroy tomorrow practice. Whenever she caught herself saying, "I'll do it tomorrow," she asked 3 questions. Is this important to my goals? Am I avoiding this because of fear? What's the smallest action I can take right now? Usually, the honest answers revealed that she was postponing important work because of fear, and there was always some small action she could take immediately. Making 1 phone call instead of waiting to make 10 perfect ones. Writing 1 imperfect paragraph instead of waiting to write the perfect chapter. taking one uncertain step instead of waiting for the clear path. The transformation was remarkable. Within 3 months of destroying tomorrow from her vocabulary, Elena had launched her business, secured her first major clients, and built momentum that carried her far beyond what perfect preparation could have achieved. The Stoics taught that procrastination is fundamentally arrogant. It assumes you know what the future holds and that you'll have better opportunities later. But life is unpredictable. The opportunity available today might not exist tomorrow. The energy you have now might not be there later. The person you could help today might not need your help tomorrow. Marcus Aurelius faced plagues, wars, and political crises. Yet he understood that even in chaos, there are always meaningful actions available right now. You can't control circumstances, but you can control your response to circumstances, and that response can only happen in the present moment. Essentially, destroying tomorrow from your vocabulary isn't about becoming frantically busy or abandoning thoughtful planning. It's about recognizing that all meaningful action happens now, and that the perfect moment you're waiting for is actually this moment, imperfect as it may be. Consequently, when you eliminate the word that keeps you trapped in eternal preparation, you create space for the strategic elimination that allows you to accomplish far more by actually doing far less. 6. Build more achievement by doing way less. Stoic paradox. Here's the scenario. Amanda Chun, a management consultant in Seattle, works 12-hour days but feels like she's accomplishing nothing meaningful. Her calendar is packed with meetings that could be emails, projects that don't align with her goals, and commitments she made out of guilt rather than purpose. She's constantly busy but rarely productive, always moving but never making real progress toward what actually matters. Amanda's exhaustion wasn't from working too little, it was from working on too much of the wrong things. She had fallen into the modern trap of confusing activity with achievement, motion with progress, and being busy with being effective. Her transformation came when she discovered a simple principle that guided the most powerful man in ancient Rome. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of the vast Roman Empire, had unlimited demands on his time and attention. Every senator, general, and citizen wanted something from him. He could have filled every moment with activity. Instead, he followed a radical principle that seems counterintuitive. If you seek tranquility, do less. This wasn't advice from someone with unlimited time. This was strategy from someone with unlimited responsibilities. Marcus understood something that modern people have forgotten. The secret to building more achievement isn't adding more activities to your life. It's ruthlessly eliminating everything that doesn't serve your essential goals. Amanda's breakthrough began when she started asking Marcus's crucial question about every request, meeting, and project. Is this essential? Not important, not urgent, not potentially useful, essential. Marcus taught that when you eliminate the inessential, you get the double satisfaction of doing less better. Think about how backward this seems to everything we're taught about success. We're told to say yes to opportunities, to hustle harder, to do more, be more, achieve more. But the Stoics understood that unlimited yes lead to unlimited mediocrity. When you try to do everything, you end up doing nothing well. For Amanda, this realization was both liberating and terrifying. Liberating because it gave her permission to focus on what truly mattered. Terrifying because it required saying no to things that seemed important, disappointing people who expected her availability, and trusting that less could actually be more. The Roman emperor faced the same challenge on a massive scale. Every decision he made affected millions of people. Every meeting he attended, every letter he wrote, every policy he considered, the pressure to do everything must have been overwhelming. Yet he built more achievement by constantly asking what was truly essential versus what was merely urgent or expected. Marcus wrote in his personal journal about the importance of eliminating activities that don't contribute to your core purpose. He understood that scattered attention produces scattered results, while focused attention produces powerful achievement. This isn't about being lazy or avoiding responsibility. It's about being strategic with your most precious resource, your energy and attention. Amanda implemented what she called essential filtering, a systematic approach to building achievement through elimination. Before agreeing to any commitment, she asked 3 questions. Does this align with my core goals? Will this make me better at what matters most? Am I saying yes out of genuine purpose or out of guilt and fear? The results were immediately uncomfortable and ultimately transformative. She said no to networking events that felt like obligations. She declined projects that paid well but didn't advance her expertise. She stopped attending meetings where her presence wasn't truly necessary. Initially, this felt wrong, like she was missing opportunities to build achievement. But something remarkable happened. With fewer commitments demanding her attention, Amanda could bring higher quality focus to the work that remained. Projects that previously took weeks of scattered effort were completed in days of concentrated work. Client relationships that suffered from her divided attention became stronger when she could be fully present. Her achievement multiplied. The Stoics called this principle more wood behind fewer arrows. Instead of shooting many arrows in different directions, you concentrate your force behind the few arrows aimed at your most important targets. The result is greater achievement with less effort, the ultimate Stoic paradox. Marcus Aurelius demonstrated this principle in his approach to governing. Rather than trying to micromanage every aspect of the empire, he focused on the essential elements that would have the greatest impact. He understood that building achievement isn't about doing everything. It's about doing the right things exceptionally well. For Amanda, this meant identifying her 3 core professional goals and ruthlessly evaluating every opportunity against these criteria. Consulting projects that aligned with her expertise got her full attention. Those that didn't were declined or delegated. Speaking engagements that advanced her reputation were accepted. Those that were just busy work were politely refused. The counterintuitive result was that Amanda's achievement and income increased while her work hours decreased. Clients valued her more because she was less available and more focused when she was present. Her expertise deepened because she wasn't spreading her learning across dozens of unrelated areas. Her reputation grew because she became known for excellence in specific areas rather than mediocrity across many. Marcus's insight reveals why this paradox works. When you eliminate the inessential, you free up mental and physical resources to excel at what truly matters. You trade the exhaustion of doing many things poorly for the satisfaction of building real achievement through fewer things done exceptionally well. This doesn't mean avoiding all challenges or commitments outside your core focus. It means being intentional about your choices and understanding that every yes to something inessential is a no to something that could build genuine achievement. Amanda discovered that the hardest part wasn't identifying what to eliminate. It was having the courage to actually eliminate it. Building achievement through doing less requires confidence that your chosen focus is worth the opportunities you're giving up. It requires trusting that depth creates more achievement than breadth. The ancient emperor faced pressures we can barely imagine, yet he built lasting achievements by constantly returning to the essential question, what truly matters? This question cuts through the noise of urgent demands and social expectations to reveal what deserves your finite attention and energy. The Stoic paradox teaches us that achievement isn't about addition, it's about subtraction. It's not about how much you can handle, but how wisely you can choose. The most successful people aren't those who say yes to everything, but those who say no to almost everything except what truly builds toward their essential goals. In essence, building more achievement by doing way less isn't just a productivity strategy. It's a life philosophy that recognizes your energy and attention as sacred resources that should be invested, not scattered. With this understanding of strategic elimination established, we can now turn to how creating order in your external environment becomes the foundation for maintaining this essential focus and building unshakable inner peace. 7. How to build inner peace through outer organization. Suppose Robert Kim, a lawyer in Boston, sits at his desk every morning feeling overwhelmed before he even starts working. Papers are scattered across every surface. His computer desktop has 47 random files. His email inbox shows 1,247 unread messages, and his phone buzzes constantly with notifications. He feels anxious, distracted, and mentally exhausted just looking at the chaos surrounding him. Robert assumed his stress came from his demanding caseload and difficult clients. He never connected his mental turbulence to the physical disorder that surrounded him every day. This disconnect would have surprised the ancient Stoics, who understood a fundamental principle that modern neuroscience now confirms. Your external environment directly shapes your internal state. The Greeks had a word for this principle: order. This wasn't just about keeping things tidy. It was about creating the environmental foundation that supports mental clarity, emotional stability, and focused action. When your surroundings are chaotic, your mind becomes chaotic. When your environment is organized, your thoughts become organized. Marcus Aurelius, despite commanding the vast Roman Empire, maintained meticulous order in his personal space and daily routines. He understood that a leader dealing with external chaos needed internal peace, and internal peace required external structure. This wasn't obsessive-compulsive behavior, it was strategic environmental design. Robert's transformation began when he discovered what researchers now call the outer order, inner calm principle. When he looked at his cluttered desk during a particularly stressful week, he realized something profound. His workspace was a perfect metaphor for his mental state. Scattered, overwhelming, and impossible to navigate efficiently. The connection between environment and mental state isn't just philosophical, it's neurological. When your visual field is cluttered with distractions, your brain must constantly process and filter information, creating what psychologists call cognitive load. This mental taxation depletes the same energy you need for important decisions, creative thinking, and emotional regulation. For Robert, this meant that every morning he sat down to work, his brain was already working overtime just to process his chaotic environment. Before he even opened his first case file, he was mentally exhausted from navigating the disorder around him. Seneca understood this principle from personal experience. Living in busy, noisy Rome, he wrote about the importance of creating ordered spaces that protected mental clarity from external chaos. He knew that trying to maintain philosophical wisdom while surrounded by disorder was like trying to meditate in a hurricane. The Stoics practiced what they called environmental discipline, the deliberate creation of order and systems that supported their philosophical practice. This wasn't about perfectionism or rigid control. It was about eliminating environmental friction that drained mental energy and created unnecessary stress. Robert started with his desk, removing everything except what he needed for his current case. The simple act of clearing the visual clutter created an immediate sense of mental spaciousness. His thoughts became clearer, his focus sharper, and his anxiety noticeably decreased. But the transformation went deeper than just cleaning. Robert began implementing systems that maintained order automatically. He created specific places for specific items, established routines for processing paperwork, and set up digital systems that kept his computer and email organized without constant effort. The principle extends beyond physical spaces to digital environments. Robert's computer desktop, once a chaos of random files, became organized with clear folders and logical systems. His email inbox, once an overwhelming flood of unread messages, became a managed system with filters and regular processing routines. Marcus Aurelius wrote about how external order creates the mental space for important thinking. When you're not constantly searching for misplaced items, mentally processing visual clutter, or feeling overwhelmed by disorder, you free up mental resources for what actually matters. For Robert, this meant the difference between starting each day feeling defeated by chaos and starting each day feeling prepared and focused. His morning routine went from scattered scrambling to calm, purposeful preparation. His workday went from reactive firefighting to proactive problem solving. The Stoics understood that creating order wasn't about controlling everything. It was about controlling what you could control to build strength for handling what you couldn't control. When your immediate environment supports your goals, you have more resources available for dealing with unexpected challenges. Robert discovered that environmental order creates what psychologists call decision momentum. When your surroundings are organized and systematic, you make better decisions throughout the day because you're not depleting mental energy on environmental chaos. This principle applies to every area of life. Your bedroom affects your sleep quality. Your kitchen organization influences your eating habits. Your workspace impacts your productivity. Your car's condition affects your commute stress. Each environment either supports or undermines your ability to build inner peace. The key insight is that environmental order isn't about perfection. It's about creating systems that work automatically. Robert learned to ask, does this environment make it easier or harder to be the person I want to be? If the answer was harder, he changed the environment. Seneca wrote about how needless chaos in our surroundings creates needless agitation in our minds. But he also understood that life is naturally messy and unpredictable. The goal isn't to control everything. It's to create ordered foundations that can handle disorder when it inevitably arrives. For Robert, this meant building habits that maintained order without requiring constant willpower. Simple systems like everything has a place and goes back to its place eliminated the daily decision fatigue of dealing with clutter. The results extended far beyond the organization. Robert's stress levels decreased significantly. His productivity increased because he wasn't wasting time searching for things or processing visual chaos. His clients noticed he seemed calmer and more focused. His family benefited from his improved mood and energy. The ancient Stoics knew something we've forgotten in our cluttered, distracted world. Your environment is either working for you or against you. There's no neutral ground. Either your surroundings support your goals and inner peace, or they undermine them. This doesn't require expensive redesigns or perfect aesthetics. It requires intentional choices about what you allow into your space and systematic approaches to maintaining supportive environments. Therefore, building inner peace through outer organization isn't about becoming obsessively neat. It's about recognizing that your external environment is a tool that can either support or sabotage your mental clarity, emotional stability, and ability to focus on what truly matters. Building on this point, the next pillar requires protecting the mental clarity you've created through environmental order by establishing unbreakable boundaries that shield your inner peace from external chaos and energy drains. 8. Building unbreakable boundaries to protect your energy. Allow me to set the scene. Lisa Martinez, a high school teacher in Denver, arrives home every evening completely drained. Not from teaching. She loves her students and finds energy in helping them learn. She's exhausted from dealing with demanding parents who text her at all hours, colleagues who dump their problems on her during lunch breaks, administrators who pile extra responsibilities on her because she's so capable, and friends who treat her like their personal therapist. Lisa gives and gives until she has nothing left for herself, her family, or even her students. She feels guilty saying no to anyone, constantly worries about disappointing people, and has somehow become responsible for everyone else's emotional needs while neglecting her own. Her transformation came when she discovered what Marcus Aurelius wrote in his personal journal about preparing for difficult people. Every morning, the emperor would remind himself, "Today I will deal with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness." But here's the crucial part, he didn't stop there. He continued, "But I won't let them implicate me in ugliness. None of them can hurt me." Marcus understood something that modern people struggle with. You cannot control other people's behavior, emotions, or demands, but you can build unbreakable boundaries that protect your energy and peace of mind from their chaos. The Stoics called this concept the inner citadel, a fortress of the mind that external circumstances cannot penetrate. This wasn't about becoming cold or uncaring. It was about becoming strategically self-protective so you could actually help others from a position of strength rather than depletion. Lisa's breakthrough began when she realized that her inability to set boundaries wasn't kindness. It was actually a form of self-destruction that made her less effective at helping anyone. When you're constantly drained by other people's demands, you have nothing meaningful to offer when it truly matters. The first boundary Lisa learned to build was around her time. She established specific hours when she was available for work communications and when she wasn't. Parents who texted her at 9 p.m. about non-urgent issues received responses the next day during work hours. This felt uncomfortable initially, but it was essential for protecting her evening energy for family and rest. Marcus Aurelius faced pressures we can barely imagine. Every citizen of the Roman Empire potentially had demands on his time and attention. Yet he maintained his effectiveness by understanding that unlimited availability leads to unlimited depletion. Even emperors need boundaries. The second boundary Lisa built was emotional. She learned to distinguish between empathy and absorption. Empathy means understanding and caring about someone's situation. Absorption means taking on their emotional state as your own. Lisa could care about her students' struggles without carrying their anxiety home with her. Seneca wrote extensively about this principle. He understood that trying to help others while absorbing their emotional chaos was like trying to save a drowning person while drowning yourself. You must maintain your own emotional stability to be genuinely helpful to others. Lisa discovered that colleagues who constantly complained during lunch breaks weren't seeking solutions. They were seeking emotional dumping grounds. She learned to respond with brief acknowledgement and then redirect. "That sounds frustrating. What are you planning to do about it?" This simple shift moved conversations from endless venting to problem-solving or natural conclusions. The third boundary was around responsibility. Lisa had unconsciously accepted responsibility for other people's emotions, problems, and even their professional duties. She realized that taking on responsibilities that belonged to others wasn't helping them. It was enabling their dependence while depleting her energy. The Stoics taught that each person is responsible for their own choices, emotions, and outcomes. When you try to control or fix things that aren't yours to control, you abandon your own responsibilities while taking on burdens that drain your strength without actually helping anyone. For Lisa, this meant stopping her habit of staying late to complete work that her colleagues should have finished. It meant not rushing to solve every problem her students shared with her, but instead teaching them problem-solving skills. It meant allowing her friends to experience the natural consequences of their choices instead of constantly rescuing them. Marcus Aurelius wrote about maintaining what he called sympathetic detachment, caring about people while maintaining emotional and energetic separation from their chaos. This isn't coldness. It's strategic self-preservation that allows you to help others more effectively. The fourth boundary Lisa built was around her physical and mental space. She created what she called energy recovery zones, specific times and places where she could recharge without interruption. Her bedroom became off-limits for work materials and stressful conversations. Her morning coffee time became a protected space for reflection and preparation. Epictetus, who understood suffering personally, taught that you always have the choice about what you allow into your mind. External events happen, but your inner citadel, your thoughts, values, and emotional responses, belongs to you alone. The results of Lisa's boundary building were transformative. Instead of feeling guilty about protecting her energy, she discovered that having stronger boundaries made her more effective at helping others. When students needed support, she had the energy to give. When colleagues faced genuine crises, she could provide meaningful assistance. When friends needed advice, she could offer clarity instead of joining their confusion. Lisa learned that boundaries aren't walls that separate you from others. They're gates that allow you to choose what enters your mental and emotional space. Strong boundaries enable genuine connection because you're engaging from strength rather than depletion. The key insight that changed everything for Lisa was understanding that protecting your energy isn't selfish. It's essential for serving others effectively. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you cannot help others build strength while you're constantly drained. The Stoics faced daily pressures from people who wanted their time, attention, energy, and emotional labor. They learned to be generous with genuine help while being protective of their core resources. They understood that saying yes to everyone means having nothing meaningful to offer anyone. Essentially, building unbreakable boundaries isn't about becoming distant or uncaring. It's about creating the energetic foundation that allows you to care effectively and sustainably, helping others from strength rather than weakness. Consequently, these protective boundaries create the stable foundation needed for the final building block, learning how to maintain strength while adapting to changing circumstances without breaking under pressure. 9. How to build flexible strength, why rigid systems fail. Michael Torres, a project manager in Philadelphia, had built what he thought was the perfect system. Every task was scheduled, every process was documented, and every contingency was planned. His morning routine was precisely timed, his work methods were standardized, and his life followed predictable patterns that gave him a sense of control and accomplishment. Then his company restructured, his team doubled in size, his biggest client changed their requirements mid-project, and his carefully constructed systems crumbled. Michael felt lost, frustrated, and ineffective. His rigid approach, which had worked perfectly in stable conditions, became a liability when circumstances changed. Michael's crisis revealed a fundamental truth that the ancient Stoics understood. Life is unpredictable, and systems that cannot adapt will eventually break. The strongest structures aren't the most rigid, they're the most flexible. This isn't just philosophical wisdom. It's an engineering principle applied to human life. Marcus Aurelius faced this challenge on an epic scale. As emperor, he could have insisted that the empire follow his preferred methods and stick to established traditions. Instead, he wrote in his personal journal about the importance of adaptability. Accept what life offers you and try to look at what life deals you and say, yes, that's just what I was looking for. This wasn't passive acceptance of whatever happened. It was active flexibility that could find opportunity and strength in any circumstance. Marcus understood that rigid systems, no matter how well designed, become fragile when they cannot bend with changing conditions. The Romans studied this principle by observing nature. Trees that survive storms aren't the tallest or strongest. They're the ones that can bend without breaking. Rigid trees snap in high winds, while flexible trees sway and endure. The same principle applies to human systems and approaches to life. Michael's transformation began when he discovered the story of Cato, one of the most famous Stoics who exemplified both the strengths and dangers of rigidity. Cato was admired for his unwavering principles and refusal to compromise. But his absolute inflexibility made him ineffective as a politician during a time when Rome needed adaptive leadership. Cato's rigidity, while morally impressive, prevented him from building the coalitions and making the strategic adjustments necessary to achieve his goals. His inability to bend with changing political realities ultimately made him less effective than leaders who maintained their principles while adapting their methods. For Michael, this was a revelation. He realized that his obsession with perfect systems had made him brittle rather than strong. When circumstances changed, instead of adapting his methods while maintaining his goals, he became frustrated and paralyzed. The Stoics taught what they called flexible formlessness, maintaining core principles while adapting methods to changing circumstances. This meant being clear about what never changes, your values and ultimate goals, while being completely flexible about what always changes, methods, tactics, and immediate circumstances. Michael learned to distinguish between principles and processes. His principle of delivering quality work remained constant, but his processes needed to flex with new team dynamics, client requirements, and organizational changes. Instead of fighting these changes, he learned to flow with them while maintaining his essential standards. Epictetus, who went from slavery to a respected teacher, understood this principle intimately. When his students asked him what they should do in specific situations, he often replied that it would be better if they asked him to help make them adaptable to circumstances. He knew that teaching specific responses was less valuable than building adaptive capacity. This insight changed Michael's entire approach to planning and systems. Instead of creating rigid schedules, he built flexible frameworks. Instead of detailed step-by-step processes, he developed adaptive principles that could guide decisions in various situations. Instead of fighting change, he learned to anticipate and prepare for it. The key was understanding that flexibility without foundation is chaos, while foundation without flexibility is fragility. Michael needed both core principles that never wavered and methods that could adapt to any situation. Consider this scenario. When Michael's team doubled overnight, his old communication systems became inadequate. Instead of insisting on his preferred methods, he asked, "What's the principle here?" The principle was clear communication and coordination. The method could be completely different: new tools, new meeting structures, new documentation approaches. Marcus Aurelius demonstrated this principle in his leadership style. He maintained an unwavering commitment to justice, wisdom, and service to Rome while completely adapting his methods to handle plagues, wars, political crises, and administrative challenges. His principles were like a strong foundation. His methods were like a flexible building that could sway without collapsing. Michael discovered that flexible strength required a different kind of mental muscle, the ability to hold core values firmly while releasing attachment to specific methods. This meant being confident in his principles while being humble about his processes. The transformation wasn't immediate or easy. Michael had to overcome his addiction to control and certainty. He learned to find security in his ability to adapt rather than in the predictability of his systems. This shift from external control to internal adaptability made him genuinely stronger. Within 6 months, Michael had become the go-to person for handling unexpected challenges and complex changes. His colleagues noticed that he seemed calm and resourceful in situations that stressed others. His flexible strength allowed him to thrive in uncertainty while others struggled with change. The Stoics understood that in a world of constant change, the only sustainable approach is adaptive resilience. This doesn't mean abandoning structure or discipline. It means building structures that can evolve and maintaining discipline in your ability to adapt. Michael learned that true strength isn't rigidity. It's the ability to maintain your essential character while adjusting your approach to whatever circumstances arise. This flexible strength became his greatest professional and personal asset. The ancient philosophers knew something that modern people often forget. Life will never stop changing, challenging, and surprising you. The question isn't whether you'll face unexpected circumstances. It's whether you'll be rigid enough to break or flexible enough to bend and grow stronger. Clearly, then, building flexible strength means creating systems and approaches that can evolve with changing circumstances while maintaining core principles, enabling you to thrive in uncertainty rather than merely survive it. These 9 building blocks create the foundation. But how do you construct your unshakable life starting today? Your 30-day blueprint for building an unshakable life. You now have the complete blueprint that Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus used to build lives so strong that external chaos couldn't shake them. 9 building blocks that transform daily struggle into unshakable strength. But knowledge without action is just entertainment, and the ancient Stoics were all about practical application. Here's your 30-day implementation roadmap for building an unshakable life, starting tomorrow morning. Days 1 to 7. Foundation Week Morning Victory. Begin with building unshakable mornings. Wake up 30 minutes earlier than usual. No phone, no distractions, just intentional preparation for your day. David from Chicago proved that winning the morning creates momentum that carries through everything else. Master this first building block before moving forward. Days 8 to 14. Mental Fortress Week. Evening reflection. Add the 10-minute evening practice that Sarah from New York used to transform mental chaos into clarity. Each night, examine your day. What challenged you? How did you respond? What can you learn? This builds the mental fortress that protects your peace from external turbulence. Days 15 to 21. Wisdom Building Week. Strategic reading. Implement Marcus Thompson's 20-minute daily conversation with ancient masters. Choose one Stoic text and read actively each morning. Ask how each insight applies to your current challenges. You're not just reading, you're apprenticing yourself to history's wisest teachers. Days 22 to 28. Complete Integration Week. Physical and essential focus. Add Jake's physical training principle and Amanda's essential elimination practice. Build physical strength that supports mental unshakeability while ruthlessly eliminating activities that don't serve your core goals. Remember the Stoic paradox. Achieve more by doing less. Days 29 to 30. Mastery Week. Boundaries and flexibility. Integrate Lisa's boundary building techniques and Michael's flexible strength principles. Protect your energy while maintaining adaptability. You're now operating from all 9 building blocks simultaneously. The remarkable thing about this blueprint is how each element reinforces the others. Morning victories create energy for evening reflection. Strategic reading provides wisdom for better decisions. Physical strength supports mental resilience. Essential focus eliminates energy drains. Organization creates clarity. Boundaries protect your resources. Flexibility prevents breaking under pressure. Robert from Boston, Elena from Miami, and every person whose story you've heard today started exactly where you are now, knowing the principles but needing to build the practices. Their transformations weren't overnight miracles. They were 30-day commitments that became 90-day habits that became unshakable ways of living. The ancient Stoics understood something profound. You don't build an unshakable life by accident. You build it through deliberate daily choices that compound over time. Each morning you choose discipline over comfort, you're building strength. Each evening you choose reflection over distraction, you're building wisdom. Each day you choose essential over urgent, you're building purpose. Your unshakable life isn't someday. It starts with tomorrow's choices. The same challenges that overwhelm unprepared people become opportunities for growth when you have these 9 building blocks as your foundation. The Stoics proved that external circumstances don't determine internal strength. Wars, plagues, political chaos, personal setbacks, none of these could shake people who had built their lives on these principles. The same strength is available to you starting right now. If this blueprint resonates with you and you're ready to build your unshakable life using ancient wisdom, subscribe to Stoic Vivu for more practical philosophy that actually works in modern life. Hit that like button if these 9 building blocks make sense to you, and share this with someone who needs the strength that comes from Stoic wisdom. Your journey to unshakable strength begins with your next choice. Make it count.